Hi everyone, we are going to be talking about factoring out negative numbers. So you have been factoring out positive numbers using greatest common factor and factoring out rational numbers so far in section 3.4. So we're continuing notes. This is 3.4b. You can just add these examples on. You can label it 3.4b. I just want to do a quick review of what we know about factoring so far. So earlier in the chapter, we learned how to distribute. So if we had something like 2 times x plus 3, we would use the distributive property to say that this is the same thing as 2 times x and 2 times 3, which would give us 2x plus 6. So when we are doing that, that's called distribution. Now, all we're doing is we're going the other way, or you can think about it as undoing distribution. So we're starting with the 2x plus 6, and we're factoring out, in this case, it was the greatest common factor, but we're going to work on factoring out negative numbers now. But when we go the opposite way, it's called factoring. All right, so that's just a quick review. So now let's talk about factoring out negative numbers. So this example is on page 111 of your textbook, and we're starting with negative 4p plus 10. And it tells us to factor out a negative 2. So we're going to have negative 2 times something, and it's going to equal negative 4p plus 10. So there's two ways to do this. The first way to do it is to just think negative 2 times what equals negative 4p. So I'm looking at my first term here of negative 4p. Well, I look at this and I think negative 2 times 2p would give us a negative 4p. So I would write that 2p as my first term in parentheses. Now I'm going to think, what is negative 2 times something that would give me 10? Well, I know it has to be a negative number because a negative times a negative equals a positive, and we're going for a positive here. So that would be negative 5. So then I would add negative 5 as my next term. Since this is negative 5, I can just write it as minus 5. So that would be our answer. And I always encourage you to double check to make sure that you did it correctly. So we can use the distribution property to make sure we factored correctly. So 2 times, or negative 2 times 2p is our negative 4p. And then negative 2 times negative 5 is positive 10. So that checks out. We did it correctly. Go us! I just want to go over one other way to do this problem with you. So the first way is to think, use your factor and think, oh, I multiply that by what to get to my original term. The second way is, say, I'll leave the first way so you can see it. So we're starting with negative 4p plus 10. And we're factoring out a negative 2. So factoring something out basically means dividing, because we're doing the opposite of distributing, which is multiplying. So that would be dividing. So I can think, oh, negative 4p, and I want to divide by negative 2 to see what's left. So negative 4 divided by negative 2 is a positive 2, and then we have our p. So I would put 2p right there. And then 10 divided by negative 2 would be a negative 5, so then I write it as minus 5. And I get that same answer. All right, so now I'm going to give you a few try it problems to do on your own. So I want you to write these down and then pause the video and try these on your own. And then when you're ready, you can push play and we'll go over them together. So the first one is factor out -5 from negative 5d plus 30. Then our second one is factor out negative 4 from negative 8k minus 12. So get those copied down, pause the video, and then we'll go over it together. All right, so for this first example, we have negative 5d plus 30, and we're trying to factor out a negative 5. All right, so I could think negative 5 times what equals negative 5d, and that would be just d. And then I can think negative 5 times what equals positive 30. Well, negative 5 times what equals positive 30, and that would be a negative 6. So then I would write this as minus 6. And that's our answer. The other way you could do this is, say, since we're factoring out negative 5, I'm just going to divide this first term by negative 5. Well, negative 5d divided by negative 5 just leaves us with a d, because negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1, so it's really 1d. And then 30 divided by negative 5 leaves us with a negative 6. All right, for the second one, we have negative 8k minus 12, and this is going to equal, and we're factoring out negative 4, so it's going to equal negative 4 times something. And I'm, for some reason, doing this from right to left. You don't have to do that way. You can do it from left to right. We just started with distribution, so we're kind of used to seeing it this way, but you can totally write it a different way if you want to. So for this one, I think I'm just going to divide each term by negative 4. So 8k divided by negative 4. Negative 8 divided by negative 4 is a positive 2, and then it's all multiplied by k. So for this next one, we have to be really careful, because the minus in the minus 12, that minus sign stays, so any sign in front of the term stays with that term. So this minus 12 stays with the 12, and we can think of it as a negative 12. So we can think of this as negative 12 divided by, so we can think of this as negative 12 divided by negative 4, which would be a positive 3. So my terms I would write in here would be 2k plus 3. And we can do a quick double check just to make sure when we do use the distributive property, we get the same answer. I was trying to fix my k over here. Okay, so I'm just going to redo the distributive property and make sure we did it right. So negative 4 times 2k would give me a negative 8k, and then negative 4 times positive 3 would give me a negative 12, which I can write as a minus 12. So I do get the same answer. That checks out, so I can go ahead and circle my answer. That's all for now. If you have any questions on your homework, don't hesitate to email me or come to my office hours, which are shown on Google Classroom, those different days and times and how to access it. So I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to me and I will help you. We can meet over Google Meet and I can explain more problems. Just please, please, please reach out if you have any questions at all. Thank you so much. You are all so wonderful.